Hello, everybody. So, we're doing this in a little bit of a different format today. Instead of just directly on Instagram, we're just kind of pre recording and then seeing what comes from it. So, today I'm talking to Sheila Edwards. She's a lovely lady. She shares a space with me here at Transformative Journeys at Crossroads Integrative, and she does some really cool stuff. She also works in different areas around Indy as well. So, Sheila, go ahead, introduce yourself, and let us know what you do.
Thanks. And thanks for having me. So, my name's Sheila Edwards, and I do energy healing sessions with people. A kind of a combination, which I know we're going to talk about different modalities and things today. So, I've been doing this work for about 5 years, I think, and I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, what weren't you doing something like similar or something like that beforehand that like kind of led you into that? Or,
Yes. So, I started, well, I was a little bit self-taught, to be honest. But that was creating problems like anxiety.
oh,
Um, yeah, just realizing you can feel people all the time was creating a lot of anxiety for me. And all of it started in 2020 because of the pandemic, because everyone was kind of panicking and in fear.
mm,
And so I was feeling all this panic and fear all at once. And that's what kind of led me to try to explore different modalities. Um, so the first one I explored was actually called Lift on therapy. And I do still use parts of that in my work, but that was the first one, and then the Reiki.
do you have a preference for like which one you use, or do you feel like you kind of like have your own thing now since you have some different types of background?
Yeah, it's really a combination. So it's really hard when people say, "What does a session look like?" Because it'll kind of jump from modality to modality, even within a session, based on what I can tell that person needs. Um, but as far as like a favorite, honestly, right now, the lift did give me a huge binder I always have it down here. This huge binder of belief systems that we can
Mhm.
explore that people might have, as well as this book, um, The Healing Questions Guide. This is probably one of my other favorite
Ooh,
modalities because she goes through like issues that you may be having in your body, like hiccups, stiff neck, dystonia, bruising easily. And then she talks
okay.
about what kind of questions should you explore. For example, asthma. What would it take me to feel more confident in my ability to meet the demands of life? So it's like things
Hmm.
you would maybe not think to associate with asthma, but
Yeah.
I just used it personally last night. I was like, okay, Sheila, like, sometimes it's hard to work on ourselves and remember. So last night my foot's been hurting, and so I went and looked up the questions related to a hurt foot, and they were pretty spot on, some of them. And I was like, okay, so you can journal on those questions, you can help reset those belief systems, and then you can work on the affirmations that it gives you as well. So I like that.
So that's even more of like a breakdown of like where people say, oh, grief lives in the lungs or stress lives in the shoulders. So it's like not just like a generalized, it like really breaks it down into like what it's attached to.
Yeah, being very specific. And I do find it's really about half the time. So maybe it's just me and the way that I use the book, compared to how the author uses the book. But when I work with individuals, sometimes their spirit guides will point me to the book and we
Mhm.
will look it up, and I'll say, for example, do you have any hip issues? Which is because that's what came up. And they'll say no. But the questions really resonate with them. So it's just a nice way sometimes of just getting access to what questions do we need to explore, but sometimes
Okay.
it does really relate to where that energy is stored in their body.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what I think is really interesting, and I think a lot of people that like are drawn to energy work or more subtle like body work with people, it's like, yeah, you do kind of have that like heightened sensitivity, and you do kind of find like life experiences lead you towards that to the point where you can't ignore it anymore, and you go,
Yes.
okay, this is the direction I need to go. Um, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and just not a lot of education around what energy work is. Like there's so many types of modalities. Like me personally, I feel like it's all the same thing. We're just like accessing the stuff in different ways, however, like it resonates with us. Um, but have you ever had experience with somebody that has just been really like kind of down on what you do, or like, you know what I mean? Like you tell them what you do and they're just kind of like, "Oh, that's a bad thing. That's not a good thing," or like, "Oh, I don't believe in that." Like how do you manage that when people come at you in that way?
Yeah, that's a lot of people, right? So I guess you sometimes you kind of already know, like if it's family, or close friends.
Mhm.
So one way I do it is kind of equating it to prayer. You know, a lot
Mhm.
of people believe that if many people pray for something, that it can help to heal. And so I see energy work as very similar to prayer in that we're
Mhm.
just putting our intention and our energy towards asking God, source, universe to help us heal that issue. So when I, use that analogy, then sometimes people are at least more understanding of where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
Some very scientific minds, then I talk about the book Emotion Code, for example, which is another, in 2020, I got introduced to the emotion code and was like devouring it. If you're not, people, watching this, if you're not familiar with emotion code, he talked about, the science of how energy can get stuck in our bodies and how there's been research about magnets and using magnets to actually help people heal. And these different scientific things looking at the body and emotions. And even the idea of, when you're really, really angry and you're just so full of anger, like you can feel that energy. Like I just gotta
Mhm.
run. I gotta get rid of this feeling, right? And so to
Mhm.
me, that's another way to explain energy work of sometimes it just gets stuck and we're trying to help it get out because you don't want to carry that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I like how you kind of explain that. And too, like differentiating between like, some people it's just like a scientific thing. Like they really can't, like unless they have proof,
right.
it doesn't click for them. And then for some people it's like their own personal beliefs. It kind of clashes with that. So I like how you kind of broke it down in a way that you give examples, you kind of educate, you give them something to compare it to instead of just like, throwing your hands up there and be like, well, whatever, if you don't believe it.
Right.
Sometimes it's nice to just like give that a little bit of extra support. Sometimes it's planting seeds as well. They
Yeah.
may not resonate with it right away, but sometimes later on down the road, they might realize it might be something that's going to benefit them. So, what types of clients or people do you work best with?
Yeah, and so like to your point a minute ago, it's not for everybody, right? Like not everybody needs everything and it's not going to
Hmm.
resonate with everybody. But like you said, sometimes you'll plant a seed and then later, for example, myself, probably, I probably wouldn't have been into any of this stuff 15 years ago. It would have been too woo-woo for me. But now, I've seen things work with my own eyes and on my own body. And to me, it's all about do no harm. Like if it can't hurt, then why try it type
Yeah.
feeling. So that's it. So the type of person, to answer your question, who's a good fit, would be somebody who's willing to give it a shot. Like, okay, if it can't hurt, let's go give it a
Yeah.
shot. Let's try. And they have that intention when they sit down. It's like they're bringing this energy of, I'm going to try this, almost like the placebo effect. If it works, it works, and I feel better, and who cares how it worked? And if it doesn't work, then I tried it. Those are the people who are allowing it and have that intention, and then I do see it work. Various rates for various people of how much you're quote healed. But the people who it's not going to work for are the people who've really set their mind on that it's just not going to work. Which
Hmm.
is interesting because often I get referrals for family members, especially husbands. Um, it is what it is, but if they're not on board, then it's it's just going to prove their point that it didn't work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, what are some of the benefits that somebody, if they are open to trying and they are kind of like open to seeing what happens, what kind of benefits can they expect or experience from doing work with you?
Yeah. It really varies by the person and their intent coming in. So often people come to me with a problem and they come to me with something that they want to work on. Not always. Sometimes they just say, let's see what comes up, and then we do. But often people have something in mind. And so again, when your energy is focused on something, and then that is the thing that can help move. So it's often people who have a lot of past life experiences, some would label that trauma, that has really deeply affected them and they still feel like they're carrying that around. If you've heard of the ACEs, the Childhood Experiences Questionnaire, a lot of
Yeah.
people come to me with a lot of, in fact, when I do an initial survey, it's optional, but a lot of people fill out a lot of ACEs, like childhood adverse experiences that were not so great. For example, feeling like you didn't have enough growing up, feeling like there was someone abusive in your home, feeling like people were out to get you or you were bullied or people couldn't see you. So often people who come and do a session with me, we help them or I help them to let go a little bit of how much that affects them in their day-to-day life so they can walk around and feel like, okay, that happened to me, but I'm not carrying it as much. Like I can
Mhm.
walk taller and straighter and more confident and more free. So people almost always leave my sessions saying they feel lighter, they feel less stressed out, they feel calmer, and more positive and optimistic. And then sometimes, depending on what people again bring to me, some people have seen boosts to their personal business. They've seen health improvements. One person had a surgery, and the surgeon told her in 20 years he's never seen anyone heal like that.
Oh.
So, I don't claim it 100% because to me, she was there with her intention and she's also an energy worker. So she brought her own healing with that. And personally, I don't say that I'm doing the healing anyway. It's God or source, however you label that energy. I personally label it as God, but I know not everyone does. So I try to be inclusive of how we label that energy.
Mhm.
Um, so I believe God's source is what is really healing us, right? We're just all coming to the table and saying, this is what we want to work on. This is what where we'd like to be. Um, so yeah, that was a really long-winded answer.
No, you're good. No, that was all good stuff. So it definitely feels like you're facilitating the allowing of healing. You're facilitating people to like open up and be connected with that. So their connection is allowing their body to do what it needs to do or their emotions to do what it needs to do because I think as energy workers as well, like we understand that it's not just mental, it's not just emotional, it's not just physical, it's not just energetic. Like, it's all a reflection of one
Yes.
another. So like if you're physically presenting with something or you're emotionally struggling with something, it's connected to a specific energy in the more subtle realm. So it's like we have to figure out how we can quiet the mind and like let people allow what needs to happen on the subtle side so it like affects the whole basically.
Yes. And to that note, I like to give people tools because I never want someone to feel like they're reliant on me as the
Mm,
middleman for their healing.
yeah.
So I like to give people, after every session, I give people, they get an email a few days after our session, and it has quote homework because I used to be a teacher, but I always tell people I don't check it, it's just for you. But it's things that they could do on their own to continue the work that we've done in the session and that they could do on their own if they decide never to do a session with me. They've got these tools that they could use every day. Um, for example, tapping, EFT, if you've heard, tapping the points.
Yeah.
Affirmations are a really big one that I like to use, grounding. Um, a lot of those types of things that maybe people have never heard about, um, or haven't really explored to use on their own.
So, and you said that you kind of like use these techniques on yourself, like for your own healing. Like
Yeah.
what's been the biggest or one of the biggest things that you have noticed in doing this on yourself? Like one of the biggest changes you've noticed for yourself?
Wow. That is a really crazy question because, I have a teaching background. I was a teacher in the school systems for 13 years. And so I was used to being in front of people and working one-on-one or working with whole groups. But a lot of it was fake it till you make it. A lot of it was me being in front of these people and just trying to get through because I enjoyed teaching and I enjoyed being with the kids, but like being in front of that whole group really like triggered my PTSD a little bit.
Hmm.
I say really in a little bit. So it depends on the day. Um so the biggest change I've seen for me is like this growth in confidence, this growth in how I see myself as a person,
Hmm.
and this ability to stop worrying so much what people think about me and worry more about what I want for myself in my own life.
Yeah,
And
that's a
it's
big
quite a
one.
journey. Like I wouldn't say I'm 100% there. I don't know if any human is. Um, and it's not only these techniques that I've learned and been using on myself, it's also accessing other healers, and other modalities like myofascial, acupuncture has been big for me, even talk therapy and EMDR. So
Mhm.
I have a lot of aces, or a lot of just life experiences that have impacted me that I have to work through. But yeah, this energy work, when I work on myself, it's really nice to, I just did it earlier today, I'm like, oh, that bothers me so much. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I worked through an energy technique on it. And I was like, okay, does that bother me still? I'm like, okay, a little, but not as much as it was bothering me 5 minutes ago. So that's
Yeah.
the thing that I like to help people with the most is like just being able to go through your day and not feel like you have all these things like, oh, that drives me nuts, or I'm so angry about this or that, or I'm so hurt, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's basically, you're helping them like acknowledge and be aware of what's happening and also giving them the tools to empower themselves to create change in the moment, which I think is that's one of the most important things that we can do as people trying to facilitate others healing is like giving them the tools. So I love that you do that.
Yes.
So I had a session with Sheila and it was really good. There was a lot of things that she hit on that some of them I was aware of, some of them I wasn't. But one of the things that I carried forward with me is she uses oracle cards. So at the end of the session, she gave me an oracle card, and I don't know if you saw it last time you were here, but I have it out there in the
Oh,
little
no, I didn't.
laboratory area. So every time I go out there, I see it. It was like the universe has big things in store for you or something. So every time I go out there, I see it. So yeah, talk a little bit about like how you incorporate oracle cards and how you use those.
It's so fun to use oracle cards, and it's interesting because I was always interested in tarot, but I've really tried and I can't yet, not yet, haven't figured out how to read tarot. They all have their different meanings. The oracle cards to me are nice because they're usually very positive cards.
Hmm.
They're usually very positive cards. I always have them sitting right here because this is usually if I do virtual sessions, I'm in this room. Um, I just got a new deck called a Divine Abundance. Um, what I like about them is if you're intuitive, for me personally, I receive messages as pictures, words, sounds, feelings, things like that. But sometimes it's hard to get an exact phrase, especially if it's like a really complicated word that is not typically in your vocabulary, right? Which is why
Yeah.
tools are nice, like this book, bringing me to a page of um numbness. Would I come up with that word? I don't know. So it's funny, I was about to bring this word up yet too a minute ago. Um, Usually these cards are very powerful, like worth and detachment and karma. Karma's not
Mhm.
like a positive word. Freedom is a positive word, but loss is not a super powerful or a positive word that you would think about being with abundance. Um, this says sometimes you learn true offering through loss, and you
Mhm.
can show your own love, blah, blah. So to me, it's like helping us think outside the box, like you said a
Hmm.
minute ago, of things that maybe once they're brought to your attention, you're like, okay, that absolutely tracks. That fits 100%. But it's hard to just pull that thought out of midair sometimes. And so the oracle cards really help. They're also nice, like you said, in in-person sessions. I usually, if I remember, I have two decks of cards where I draw one and people get to take it with them.
Hmm.
So it's nice to have that like physical thing that you can carry with you when you leave a
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. So I have been leaning more into using tarot and oracle as well because how you kind of described it earlier, it's like sometimes it's just so much stuff going on, or it's like it's such a complicated emotion, or it's such a complicated like idea. There's like 12 different things going on, and it's really
Yeah.
difficult to verbalize that and put it into words. But then, yeah, when we have tools like that where there's meanings assigned to them, we can tap into that, and then our mind goes, okay, this is what this means. So I love how you brought up that aspect of it, that it's like, yeah, and we all have intuition, right? We all have access
Yes.
to that. Some people it's a little it's kind of like someone that's born with skills in math, or someone that's born athletic. It's the same sort of thing. It's not necessarily something that's always nurtured in the same way.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
society, I think people are starting to get more on board with it. But it's like everyone has access to this, so like anyone could get an oracle card set and kind of like
Yeah.
work on training themselves to tune into things like that. But yeah, when you are picking up on a lot of jumbled stuff, like tools are really important to use.
That's such a good point because if you're just starting to try to access your intuition, it can feel like you're getting all this info and you don't know which one to pick.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they're probably all right and they're all correct, but like which one's the most important? Okay, maybe love is the most important thing to focus on right now. So it
Hmm.
does kind of help you tune in and quiet that noise a little bit. That is something I help people in sessions if they want to be more in tune with their intuition and they want to try to tune into that. I can help people with that.
Yeah. So what all places are you located? I know you do virtual as well, so maybe talk a little bit about how people can access you.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, I love being at your space. It's like such a quiet and like just like homey, peaceful space in Fishers. And then Carmel. I have somebody in Zionsville who's offered to let me use her space. And then Greenwood, I'm at a lot. And then virtual. And I was just thinking on my drive today about the difference between virtual and in person. Sometimes people have a preference over one or the other.
Hmm.
Um, some people really like the virtual because sometimes energy work makes you cry, makes you feel like really big emotions, and it's not
Yeah.
a bad thing. There's no judgment. It's just like, whoa, that came up and I don't know why I'm crying. And it's nice to be able to just like turn off the computer after the session and like go sit on your couch and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea for a minute and like
Hmm.
not have to drive anywhere and not have to go see other
Yeah.
people, right? It's just like you're in your zone. Some people really like the in person because it's like you're right there talking to them and you're interacting and it almost feels more real. I don't know how to describe that. And then like you
Yeah.
said, you can get a real tarot card to bring with you or a oracle card. So yeah, it's whatever people's preference is.
Yeah, I like that you're accessible in different areas. That's kind of a nice
Yeah.
thing for people, because I know for me, like physically, I'm in Fishers. Like I don't travel. I don't. So it's like some people, they're only going to drive so far.
Right.
But that's one nice thing about energy work, and I'm starting to offer this as well. Like virtual sessions, is that you can go, wherever with it. Basically, if people are open to virtual. So just I love that you have all the options and you're so accessible to people.
Yeah.
So how do people book with you? Like, what socials do you have?
Yeah. And another nice thing about virtual is that like I meet with people all over the country and even in in other countries sometimes. Like one client, she's currently in India. I just
Mhm.
met with her earlier this week because she's like, oh, I need a quick session. So we figured out time zones, you know. So that's why booking on my website is probably the best if you're in a different time zone, just because the website figures out the time zone and then I personally don't mess it up.
Oh, that's nice.
Time zones are hard, right? Yeah. Especially if you're in a, you know, like India has two time zones and Arizona has two time zones. Like,
Mhm.
that can be really tricky. And then, you know, we don't want to miss each other. So you can book directly on my website, which is starflowerintuitive.com, and then go to booking and then intuitive healing. I have a lot of service options because people like different things. And so it's nice to offer different options. But if you're not sure and you want virtual, it's intuitive healing is what you want.
Okay.
And then I have an Instagram, which is Starflower Healing. And then I have a Facebook, which is Starflower Intuitive. So
Okay, nice.
yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. And I don't know, I've had a session with you too, so I just want to say that your session was really nice and so
Oh, thank
relaxing.
you.
And I felt like, I know it's supposed to be about me today, but I felt like your session was really nice. And, you know, it was obviously in person. Like, again, the physical in person was nice because it was like that myofascial release. But
Mhm.
I could see where people would benefit from you virtually as well because there's like that energy work aspect. So,
Yeah,
so
and
thanks for having me in
since I've
virtually.
started like incorporating like the cards with it and feeling more confident with like my intuitive messages, like it's weird. Like once I started like offering it, like I've had people come in. I had my first virtual one from TikTok the other day. Like it's just
Oh,
once you start aligning with it. But too, I think that speaks to um, you know, being able to have different modalities, hit things from different angles. Like you want to have the energetic, you want to have the physical, you want to have the mental with, mental health support, you want to have emotional stuff.
yeah.
So it's such a healing in itself is so complex and so layered that you can't just do one thing and expect it to okay, we're done now, we're fixed. Like it's a journey.
That is
So
very true because I focused so much on the energy work for a little bit because I didn't really know about a lot of the physical, you know, like massage and things like that. And now I'm getting more into the physical work because you're right.
yeah.
You kind of, if you really want to get deep down into healing, it's like exploring all those different aspects of, they all do different things and they work in different ways, you know? So
Yeah.
seeing me is going to be different from seeing Chelsea. You're going to get different things out of that experience. One's not better than the other. We all just do
Yeah.
slightly different
But they're
work.
very supportive as well, which is why I love having you in the space
True.
and just in general, like having other people in the space that do supportive work like that, where we're all kind of like bouncing off of each other and hitting different angles for people.
Right.
Because it's like you really do want to provide the best for your clients, but you know that you can't always do everything for them either. So,
Yes. Yeah. Can't be everything to everybody all the time. Like that's just not how anyone works,
yeah.
except for God.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
humans, so
right.
yeah. But
Yep.
yeah, thanks for having me on today. This has been a fun
Yeah,
chat.
thank you.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
maybe. Yeah, if you like doing stuff like this, actually, I'll probably cut this part out. But in the future, actually, I'll just go ahead and stop recording. I think that's a good place to stop. But I will. How do I stop recording?
Um,
Do I just hit record again?
yeah,
Okay,
try that.
stop recording. Yeah. Okay.